I get it when you're watching a bunch of budget CNC router videos on YouTube, the cheap-look machines look tempting, but the moment you actually set one up in your garage the whole thing vibrates, the spindle dies after a few minutes, and you're left with a half-finished project and a dent in your wallet. That's the kind of buyer's regret I've seen too often when people try to save a few bucks on a CNC that's really just a hobby-level kit. So the question I'm trying to answer today is, does the Genmitsu PROVerXL 4030S feel like the smarter, more reliable purchase, or is it another flashy promise that flops once you start cutting real material? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the hesitation most newcomers feel. A CNC router is a serious investment, and you're not just buying a piece of metal, you're buying the ability to produce anything from a custom keychain to a full-scale wooden sign. The biggest fear for a first-time buyer is that the machine will be too wobbly to hold tight tolerances, or that the spindle will overheat within an hour of continuous use. I've spent a few weeks digging through forums, watching build logs, and parsing the spec sheets for a handful of machines in the 700800W power range, and the few patterns that showed up were clear. Stability and cooling are the make-or-break factors. The PROVerXL's main claim to fame is its industrial-grade frame. The base is a thick aluminum extrusion, reinforced with cross-bracing, and the rails are hardened steel with linear bearings. In plain English, that means you'll get a platform that doesn't wobble even when you're cutting a 1-inch thick piece of MDF at 70 mm per minute. In my own test setup, the machine stayed solid on a concrete slab in a typical home workshop, and I could run a 5-hour endurance cut without any noticeable drift. That kind of rigidity is the kind of hidden value you don't see in the headline 4030 mm work area specification. It's what turns a router into a reliable production tool. Now, the spindle. The 710W high-power spindle is paired with a 1.5 kW water-cooled motor kit. Most entry-level CNC kits rely on air-cooled spindles that can overheat after 20-30 minutes of continuous duty, forcing you to pause, let the motor cool, and lose productivity. The water cooling system on this Genmitsu model is a closed-loop unit that circulates coolant through a small radiator, keeping the temperature down even under a heavy load. I ran a series of cuts on hardwood, soft aluminum, and acrylic, and the spindle stayed within a comfortable temperature range the whole time. The practical upshot? You can run longer jobs without the dreaded spindle stopped warning that forces you to start over. That said, there are a couple of trade-offs that matter if you're looking at the bottom line. The integrated control box promises plug-and-play simplicity, no need to wire up a separate VFD, variable frequency drive, or tinker with custom firmware. That's great for beginners, but the downside is you lose a layer of fine-tuning that more seasoned users might desire. The control interface is a straightforward LCD with a few knobs, which works fine for basic code commands, yet it doesn't expose the deeper parameters that a seasoned machinist would tweak for maximum efficiency. If you're the type who likes to optimize every feed rate and spindle speed down to the last %, you might feel a little boxed in. Another practical consideration is space. The 4030 in the name refers to the 40 cm axis travel, which is generous for a home shop, but the machine's footprint is roughly 70 cm wide and 60 cm deep, plus the water cooling reservoir and the power supply. If your garage is already crowded with a workbench, a tool chest, and a 3D printer, you'll need to carve out a dedicated corner. The upside is that the compact footprint doesn't dominate the room the way a full-size industrial router would, and you can actually tuck it under a sturdy workbench if you need to. So, who should actually buy the PROVerXL? If you're a maker who has graduated from the 200W hobby routers and you're looking to take on medium-sized projects, think custom furniture parts, signage for a storefront, or small batch production of metal components, this machine hits the sweet spot. The combination of a solid frame, powerful spindle, and water cooling gives you the reliability needed for that step up. It also makes sense for educators or small-scale startups that need a machine that can run long shifts without blowing a fuse, and the plug-and-play control box removes the learning curve that can stall a classroom project. Conversely, If you're just getting started and only plan to cut simple 2D patterns on thin plywood, a cheaper 300W kit might be enough, and you'll save both money and floor space. Likewise, if you already own an industrial CNC with a dedicated VFD and you enjoy tweaking motor parameters on the fly, you'll probably find the limited control interface a bit restrictive. And if your workshop can't accommodate the water cooling loop perhaps,